Reparations are broadly understood as compensation given for an abuse or injury. But when the injury is generations of enslavement of black and brown peoples, the meaning of reparations can vary widely. On this episode of Race Talk Revolution with Lane and Eugene, representational artist and award-winning American sculptor Vinnie Bagwell discusses the topic Art as Reparations. Ms. Bagwell is credited with reframing public art to include historic black images and has won numerous public art commissions and awards around the country. This episode originally aired September 15th, 2021.
And again, welcome to another episode of Race Talk Revolution with Lane and Eugene. As you know, I am Eugene Holden, one of the co-hosts here at Race Talk Revolution, and we want to thank you for being here this afternoon. Speaking of this afternoon, our topic is Art as Reparations, and our speaker is the award-winning sculptor, Miss Vinnie Bagwell, who has devoted her life to reframing public art to include historic Black images and has won numerous public art commissions and awards around the United States. Today, Ms. Bagwell will speak to us about how art and reparations go hand in hand, something that I'm sure we've never really thought about. As always, during our conversation today on Race Talk Revolution, we ask that you please remain muted. And when we get to the Q&A section of the program, we will instruct you how to raise your hand. And every week, as I do, we want to remind you that Race Talk Revolution is a loving, respectful, inclusive platform. It is designed to encourage constructive dialogue around these tough issues pertaining to racial and social injustice. Race Talk Revolution is a safe space for people of all backgrounds to share ideas and opinions, to explore the nuances of systemic racism, and together we grow our anti-racism muscles. In our Race Talk community, we practice radically inclusive love. Now, what this means is that we may not understand or agree with what's being said or being shared. However, we listen with respect, we listen with appreciation and empathy. You see, remember, our commitment is that every person be encouraged, heard, and appreciated, because on Race Talk Revolution with Lane and Eugene, every voice matters. Now, here's my co-host, the Reverend Lane Cobb.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Welcome again to Race Talk Revolution with Lane and Eugene. We are so pleased to have you here. My introduction of this guest is going to be very, very short because she assures me by the time her presentation is done, you will know everything you need to know about her and how art and reparations goes together. So suffice it to say that Miss Vinnie Bagwell is an American sculptor, and she is a representational figurative artist who uses traditional bas-relief techniques as visual narratives to expand her storytelling. She casts in bronze and bronze rosin. She has won numerous public art commissions and awards around the United States. She displays a remarkable gift for drawing at an early age. And don't worry, you're gonna know everything you need to know in a minute. Vinnie Bagwell, thank you for being here. Please take it away. We're so thrilled.
Hi. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Reverend Elaine Cobb, for inviting me on today. I made a little presentation for you, so we're going to see if sharing is going to be friendly, and I think it is. And so I'm just going to kind of run through this, and when I'm done, we will open up for conversation and Q&A, if you will. So hi, Vinnie Bagwell, making history, art as reparations. All right, so let's see which way this is going to go. All right, so let's start off with what is reparations. It's the makings of amends for wrong that has been done by paying money to or otherwise to help those who have been wrong. So when I thought about this presentation, it occurred to me that I should maybe give you some illustrations of what the wrongs are so that you can fully understand why African Americans deserve reparations. So, of course, we all know that millions of Africans were enslaved for over 500 years in America, although 1619 is the date that's marked. Many of us know that that is a fallacy, that slavery went on long before 1619. And you have to try to remember that families were broken, children lost their mothers and fathers, parents lost each other, and slavery became an economic adventure for the United States of America. Of course, it was the economic engine in the South, but people don't realize that all 13 colonies, including New York, which is where I'm from, were involved with slavery to some degree. New York was financing the ships and, insuring, the ships and all kinds of, again, it was a business. And so slavery became, an adventure for the South. I'm going backwards, sorry, hold on one second. And so, the interesting thing is that the arts has always been present in the process of what we now call reparations. Movie makers, for instance, brought back the Tulsa Massacre. Most recently, people learned about it in Lovecraft Country and other things, but there were a lot of Black massacres. I mean, all over the country. You got Chicago, New York, Detroit, Washington, D.C. Of course, we know about Rosewood. You can look at the map. It's like, this is our history. Oscarville, Georgia was buried underwater on purpose by releasing a dam. It is now Lake Lanier. There's a movie coming out about it. To imagine, underneath there is a city. Lynching. More than 5,000 African Americans were lynched in America. Of course, we know about Emmett Till, but he's one of many, many, many. And there was a long history of attacks on Black churches. We all know about Birmingham, but that wasn't the only church that was bombed. Segregation and Jim Crow laws, again, forbid Black people to have equal participation, in, American society. That's why we're considered to be marginalized. Black celebrities, such as Ella Fitzgerald, were not exempt. And oftentimes there were white people who advocated for them, but again, Black people were marginalized in every arena. Artists such as Marian Anderson became important for the struggle for other artists to overcome racial injustices and prejudices. Of course, Billie Holiday, sang Strange Fruit, to protest against the humanity of racism. We have assassinations. There's Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. Police brutality is not brand new. This is something we've been contending with for decades. Unnecessary force used by the police against African Americans. It's interesting when we talk about Black Lives Matter and we talk about say their names, we read off our very short list. I Googled and I discovered that 28,000 African Americans have been killed by the police since 2000. That was jaw-dropping for me last night, in the middle of the night. Racial disparities in imprisonment. The orange is Black men in prison. The yellow is white. How is that possible? So my job is elevating the culture of marginalized people. This is like reparations to me. We're not waiting for a check in the mail. We know that that is not happening anytime in the immediate future, but public art is something that is affordable. I want to applaud the city of New York. Mayor de Blasio and his wife, Lady Charlene, set aside, first they set aside $10 million for public art about She Built NYC, and then they came back and put out another $25 million. New York is the mecca for the art world. We should be leading art in public places as reparations. So I'm a storyteller and a steward of this nation's memory. I take that responsibility very seriously. I have a voice. I want to use it. It's not just my voice for me, it's my voice for all of us. This is the piano for the piano lesson. Ruben Santiago Hudson directed it back in 2012. By the way, please go see Lackawanna Blues. It is absolutely phenomenal. I saw it last night. I can't say enough about it. But again, my goal is to design truly memorable places. This is the architectural illustration for the enslaved Africans' rain garden. I'm creating a urban heritage sculpture garden for the city of Yonkers. There are 5 life-size sculptures right now. They're on temporary view at the Yonkers Public Library down on the waterfront. Because of, got flooded, New York got seriously hit by Hurricane Ida. The construction company is running behind, so it looks like we may or we may not get it this fall. It may have to be pushed back to the spring. We don't know yet. But the idea is to have inspiration and innovation converge. This is the design for the rain garden. And again, my artwork in public places changes the perception of place. This is the overview for my design for Victory. Victory is a public art project that I won for the city of New York. And it will be on Fifth Avenue at 103rd. It's replacing the J. Marion Sims sculpture. For those of you that are not familiar, J. Marion Sims is the father of gynecology. You may have heard this story. This man became the father of gynecology by experimenting on 12 enslaved African women. So the city of New York has decided that in the name of racial democracy, we're going to replace an offensive public artwork with an artwork that celebrates the women that made his career possible. So this is Victory. And again, it's my style. She's a representational figurative sculpture. She is a winged woman, or an angel, if you will. The interesting thing about that choice is that when I was trying to figure out what should I put there, because across the street you've got the Museum of New York and you got the hospital, and I got to thinking about what goes on in those places. In hospitals, people go there because they got life and death issues going on very often. And of course, you know, in museums, you know, you have art and culture. And then I really didn't know what to make. And so, you know, sometimes my mind goes off on tangents, and I said, well, let's name it a V name. So it's a good V name. I was like, I like Victory because the people of Harlem, East Harlem and Upper East Side fought for 10 years to get this sculpture removed, and now they have something coming. So that is a victory of sorts. So when I Googled what victory means, it says victory is always portrayed as an angel. And I'm like, oh. So then, of course, I started looking into it, and well, you know, God delegates. There are 7 different choirs of angels. Victories are the ones that receive you from your guardian angel at the end of your life and take you back to your maker. So I'm thinking, that's perfect. So now I'm looking for Black angels, and there are no Black angels in public art. And I'm like, this is New York, New York, where we have tolerance for a lot of things. We should have the first Black angel. So we're in the middle of negotiations. Stay tuned on that. Meanwhile, this is Sojourner Truth up at the walkway over the Hudson in Highland, New York. And again, we're acknowledging what has been done to African Americans. This is a form of reparations. By the way, that is her 6th generation great grandson. Sojourner Truth's whole family is a bunch of artists. There are a lot of painters. And so they came out the woodwork to talk to me because they wanted to be privy to the experience, the process of making the artwork. So it was an extraordinary outcome for that public artwork. Meanwhile, I elevate the culture of marginalized people. This is Legacies in Memphis. It celebrates African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Native Americans. And again, art for public places balances the American narrative. That's Frederick Douglass at Hofstra up in Hempstead, New York. I create eye-consuming destinations about the critical roles enslaved Africans and African Americans played in American history. Again, we are not fully in the curriculums. We are not fully in the history books. If you know anything about the education arena, it takes a long time to evolve and get that done. Public art is so much easier to achieve. And so my style is defined by candid portraiture, and I use bas-relief techniques in non-traditional ways. This is an old technique. I'm surprised more people don't do it. A lot of people say it's hard. Luckily, it's not hard for me. I love it. And so again, it helps me to expand the narrative. This is the piano for the piano lesson in August Wilson's play. And so the idea is also to create visual intrigue. It makes people look, it holds their eye, it makes them wonder, it makes them pull out their phones and Google. And so again, it sparks dialogue. My subjects have souls, they speak to the viewer. I learned this through social media. I mean, I got on social media, I think in 2009, and I was stunned by the number of people on the other side of the world, many of them who don't even
Vinnie, you're muted. Vinnie, unmute yourself, hon.
I don't know how that happened. Hold
I,
on.
you know what? I probably did it. I apologize. So you were
Look-
talking about that sculpture, people on the other side of the world, please.
Yes, and so the idea is that, people, first of all, art is found in every culture in the world. It is an expression of the human spirit. And people on the other side of the world don't necessarily have the same kind of prejudices we have in this country. They don't look at this as Black art. They look at it as art about people, which was very helpful for me because it helped me to understand the power of what I do. And so the idea is that the art is meant to be engaging. One of my Facebook friends sent me this picture and I was like, I love that. Of course he sent me other pictures, but this one was very powerful to me because he's literally engaging the sculpture. And that's when I know that the artwork is working, when people talk to each other about it, when people want to touch it, when they want to make selfies, when they want to make group pictures. This says that the art is working. And so in 2009, I created, the initiative to celebrate enslaved Africans in Yonkers, because when I Googled back then, that's when Google was relatively new, I couldn't find any major monuments to enslaved Africans. And I couldn't believe it's 2000 something. And we haven't done that yet. And so I said to the mayor of Yonkers, I said, we should do it, because John Jay was the first person to try to write a law to free enslaved Africans. It was 64 years before the Emancipation Proclamation. That is American history. It's not just local history or New York history, that's American history. And so, I spent the last really 12 years developing this project. Normally I compete. In this instance, I developed because it was a story I wanted to tell. And I wanted to emphasize the importance of presenting local history. This is the Phillips Manor. I live a block north. Well, I live closer to the river, but I live a block away from this building. I know what this building is, but I didn't know the total history. I didn't know that Frederick Phillips was the largest slave trader in the country, second to the people of, North Carolina in the late 1600s, because most people think about slavery in the 1800s. And by that time we had laws and other kinds of things that had kind of evolved that experience. But again, people thought that the North was where people went for sanctuary. And as I said, New York is financing slavery. And so I created 5 life-size sculptures, for this particular project. This is Isati. I named them, again, to humanize them because enslaved Africans were treated as chattel, kind of like your cow. It's like, these are people. And again, the idea is to humanize the memory of enslaved Africans in America. Some people still have the nerve to say, oh God, why do we have to keep talking about the slaves? It's because we don't want to repeat that again. And we're still fighting for equity as African Americans. We're still fighting for the right to be treated civilly. It's a problem that has to be addressed. And so the idea is to tell the truth. Slavery existed in the North. And so for this purpose, again, thinking about humanizing the memory of people, I brought in Ty Grael, who is a phenomenal spoken word artist from DC. And I asked them to write stories about the 5 sculptures to humanize them, to help people to understand what these people endured in their day-to-day struggle to be human, from sun up to sun can't do it no more, just incredible lives. Also, I believe in civic engagement. It's been one of my keystone things that I do since the beginning of sculpting. And so I bring students into my studio to talk about civility and tolerance. These are 5th graders. They're really smart. They know stuff. And so we can have these really cool conversations about how would you feel if, when you left my house, somebody kidnapped you and took you to the other side of the world on a boat that you had to ride for like 3 months and they wouldn't let you go to the bathroom. And when they did, they doused you in water and didn't feed you good food. I mean, how would you feel about that? Again, the idea is to teach civility, to teach tolerance, so that hopefully this generation and the ones after them will grow up better than the ones before us. And so the idea is to foster dialogue about racial equity. You know, sometimes we use these words and people are like, what does that mean? It's like, let's talk about that. And so I used to, before the pandemic, used to have these great parties in my house, again, to bring people into my practice. This is the party that I had for Shola and Olumide. Again, these are two of the 5 people for the enslaved Africans Rain Garden. And a lot of times, you know, in addition to talking about our plight, I want people to have an opportunity to see the artwork. You know, in New York, we have something called See Something, Say Something. You know, I would rather hear a criticism before I finish rather than after I finish. So again, I still welcome people into my studio. I just can't have giant parties like this anymore. And so again, the idea is to bring the community fully into the creative process. Most people don't know artists that make public art. Most people don't know sculptors. Part of that reason is that the public art arena is a white patriarch arena. It is mostly, literally, white men. Of 5,600 some odd, let's just talk about figurative artworks. Less than 5% of them were made by women, and less than that were made by African Americans. So I am an anomaly. I am one of a very few artists who actually is doing this kind of work with a certain kind of regularity. I'm able to do it because I was invited into this arena really more than 25 years ago. My foundry, Sculpture House Casting, helped me with my first public art project. They made it possible. And so this is the site plan for the enslaved Africans Rain Garden. It's about an acre of land, which is a good amount of space. And again, these are site plan illustrations. We're really hoping to put this to bed by the spring of 2022. You know, at this point, we just have to wait for the construction. There's a faux river that runs through it. There's all this amazing landscaping that goes on. The sculptures are done. It's just a matter of putting it together. So stay tuned. We will keep you posted on that. You guys can follow me on Facebook. Probably is the best place because sometimes I don't have time for Twitter and Instagram. And of course, I also have a YouTube page. I am literally an essential business. Governor Cuomo made me that last year because he felt that it was important to have the public artworks that we were planning for last year be on time. It was the 100th anniversary of the women's suffrage, and Sojourner Truth was going at the walkway over the Hudson. And then of course, there was Monumental Women in Central Park. And, you know, just to create a feeling of normalcy, you know, on day 2 of pandemic, they called up and said, you know, do you want to work? I was like, yes, we do. And they were like, well, we're going to make you an essential business so that we can have this artwork because it represents our culture. And so the last thing I want to talk about is the sacred place of my ancestors up in Montgomery, New York, which is Orange County, about an hour and a half north of Manhattan. There is an African burial ground. You see the road on the right-hand side, and you see the little gray area that's kind of like a C shape. That's a truck stop. So when a tractor trailer, and it's not that big, when a tractor trailer pulls in there as a rest stop, and let's just say it's a driver that's a man, let's just say he wants to pee, all he has to do is step in the grass and he's in an African burial ground. It is beautiful, but we have concerns about preservation. We want people to know that it's there, but we don't want to disturb the land. So the first thing I asked for, you know, when they invited me to do this project was to use technology. We have a lot of technology now that we did not have 20 years ago when they were trying to discern the African burial ground in Manhattan. So now we have ground penetrating radar. This is ground penetrating radar. We found out that these people are buried maybe 18 inches below the surface. In 20 years, if people were walking on them at some point, you would seriously have bones coming through. We can't have that. And so our goal was to try to figure out a solution to honor these people, but not to disturb them. There's no reason to dig them up. You know, let them rest. And so I was able to go to the United States Department of Agriculture and I asked them for an in-kind service and they very quickly said yes. And so it was marvelous because this is one of the first projects to use the technology to discern an African burial ground. So this is our overhead site plan that we decided to create a pedestrian walkway that is actually 8 feet wide that goes around the perimeter so you can see through the burial ground, but there's no need to walk in it. And then of course we added all this lovely landscaping, you know, to make it an official cemetery, for goodness sakes. The idea is to restore these people's dignity. And so funding right now, we've got a bunch of funding pending. We expect something to pop. And funding will bring dignity to the memory of these enslaved Africans. And we're very excited about it. We're really hoping that we're able to start this next year. Let's see how it goes. And so bottom line, let the truth be told. That's what reparations is about. That's what we're living for. That's my job. Thank you. Hi.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much.
I don't know how long that took, but there you go.
Vinnie Bagwell. No, that's great. And you know, we talked this morning and you said, oh, don't read all that information about my artwork and my accolades. And I'm sorry I didn't, because people really do need to know all of the art installations that you have created and the significance of those. And I encourage people to go onto your website or just to Google you and look on YouTube. I have sent some resources out. You can see all of the artwork that you have done. I'll tell you what, there's a couple of things that you said, but in one of your interviews, you said that you were leaving a legacy, not just for yourself, but for your people. And I just want to see, what does that mean to you? And what does it mean now that municipalities appear to be responding to the need for a change in how they invest in public spaces?
You know, centenarians run in my family. All of my grandfather's sisters lived to be 100. I hope they live to be 100 because I got a lot of work to do. Since last year, when George Floyd was killed and the world just was like over it, everybody realizes that public art is a viable way to acknowledge their local history. I'm going to Alabama next week to go talk about some things. I mean, I have to go a bunch of places I'm going in the next 3 weeks to talk about public art. It's exciting because when I first started sculpting, people were like, well, how are you gonna make money doing Black people? When you're gonna do white people? I'm like, no, white people do white people. They don't need anybody Black to do white, but they're already doing themselves. We need people to do us. So that was the beginning. You know, it only took me 9 months to realize I wanted to do the big ones. Once I realized the breadth of my ability, I was like, I'm ready to do the big one. Of course, we didn't have internet back then. So I'm creative. So I created Ella Fitzgerald Public Art Commission. You know, at the time I was a news columnist for Gannett. So people knew who I was, which was helpful. You know, they didn't even ask to see illustrations or anything. They just said, here's some money, go to it. You know, the challenge was that I didn't have enough money. And so, you know, the casting house gave me Ella as a gift. And it turned out to be the first sculpture of a contemporary African-American woman to be commissioned by a municipality. Normally, I don't even bother to tell people the rest of the story because the bottom line is that it's there. And I didn't even realize what I was doing. It was the beginning. And that's when I understood that, oh, it's like that. Well, then you know what? I'm the one. And so I kept trying to figure out how to do it, but we didn't have internet. I didn't know how to get into the arena. I didn't know where the calls were coming from. So I had to wait from 1996 until 2008. It's a very difficult time. Lucky for me, I had a safety net named Dad. You know, the point of it is that because my father invested in me, he took care of me. He made sure I didn't hit the ground. I felt a responsibility not to disappoint him, for starters, because he was so serious. He scared me how serious he was. And number two, I am an artist. I'm a born artist. I mean, I was one of those little kids that could draw very well from the beginning. Everybody knew that child's an artist. Look at her. I didn't realize that my parents were artists until I was 40. I didn't realize that, I thought everybody could be an artist, if they wanted to be, because there's so many of them in my family. My family's littered with artists. Again, being raised in the 60s and the 70s, this is the beginning of Black Power and whatnot. We didn't have the same kind of latitude we have now. We're still struggling for more latitude, but the point of it is that I wanted to use the gift for good. I didn't think that the gift was random. I'm like, God didn't give me a gift for nothing. I'm supposed to do something. What am I supposed to do? The whole time I'd be like, so what do you want? Because my life wasn't working. However, when I look back to those years, like, no, it was working, because during that time, I was creating my portfolio. While I was waiting for things to pop, it's like, well, let me show you what I can make. And I was just making all kinds of stuff just so that when I finally ever got an opportunity and people were like, well, do you have any work? It's like, well, I can show you stuff I made, even though nobody bought it or it's not in a public place, I still have the talent. And so that enabled me to get number 2. And then, of course, the rest is kind of history.
Oh, it's wonderful. I mean, I find it remarkable that you're untutored, right? That's like you're channeling something, truly a gift. And I
God is real, and he's omnipotent. He makes whatever he wants, okay? He kisses some of us on the forehead before we leave, and we come here with abilities, like superhuman abilities. There are some people who go to art school that can never do what I do.
So one of the things that it does mean something, and I'll tell you, you mentioned your desire to balance the narrative for marginalized peoples and doing it through your art. What is the most important thing that you want us to take away from your talk today? And I know you're not finished, but what's something that we need to really take away from your being with us today?
Artists go through a lot. We're oppressed and abused as well in our arena. Not just Black artists, because in the race called artist, color doesn't matter. If I meet another artist and it's a white person, if I say I'm an artist and they're an artist, immediately we're related. That's the beauty of being an artist. We don't have that kind of racism within the race known as art. But we are mistreated too. And so the idea is that people take us for granted. They take what we do for granted. They don't understand the energy and the force. Most recently, let's talk about the folks in the movies, Michael Williams and others, talking about the psychological support that artists need. People take it for granted what we go through. The struggle is real. And so I'm going to say, support artists whenever you can, in whatever way you can, rather than buy a poster to hang on your wall, buy real art from an artist, from a real person, look for them. Google. See, when I was growing up, I couldn't figure out I wanted to put other people's artwork in my house, couldn't find it. I didn't just want to have my artwork, I want to have other people's artwork. Couldn't find it. You can find it now. Support artists in whatever way you can, whether you give them money, whether you purchase their artwork, whether you attend their openings. I think that's the most important thing, because we're here for good. We're here to heal. That's what we do. And when I say artists, I mean all artists. I'm not talking about visual artists. I'm talking about performing artists, musicians, actors. That's one whole race of beings. And I'm saying, go to a play, go support an artist, however you do it.
Well, it is interesting how you're talking about art as reparations, and supporting artists of color certainly is part of that. Public art, though, is really a big thing. And what you mentioned was involving the public, right? It's public art, bringing the community fully into the creative process. Now, that's got to be something. Is it a little bit difficult for you to do that as a creative, to invite people in, or no? Is that?
I live where I work. Like this is my studio. See, that's headless. Richard A. Tucker, his head's over there. But I live where I work. I work at home. When I first got this space, and this is a pretty good space. I mean, I easily have 50 people in here on a regular day. When I first thought about letting the public come in my house, like in scores, I was like, ooh, I said, you know, it's kind of like when you have little kids in your house. It's like, childproof your house. Like, take all the good stuff and put it upstairs. You know, I want people to touch the artwork. I want them to engage. But I had to release myself from my own anxieties and fears. It wasn't really hard to do. I just had to be mindful in that process. I had to figure out ways to make it okay. Like, for instance, I have a giant vestibule, no food in the house, eat out there. You know, different things I had to do to make it okay for me. And not be OCD about people sitting on my furniture or touching my things or whatever the case may be, because the idea of even living here was that I wanted people to come in here and be like, this is a real artist studio. I live and work here, and this is the work, and the work is for you.
So there are installations in different cities across this country, and this is the last question I'm going to ask, and then I'm going to turn it over to Eugene for Q&A. And how do you help municipalities come up with the appropriate icon for them, or do they already know when they're approaching you? What's the process there? Because I know you did Marvin Gaye in Washington, D.C., and you've done Frederick Douglass, and you know, how do you, and there's one in Rochester that you're doing now, I think, one of our Race Talk families, she's up there with their freedom.
You know, again, public art is a very unusual arena. A lot of municipalities have not done public art in eons. So oftentimes when they put out these calls, sometimes it's the first time in decades. And oftentimes the people that are supervising or overseeing these things don't really know the ins and outs of this arena. So lately, I'm just going to say year, let's just talk about the last year, I've had to reprimand people and be like, you don't ask artists to work for free. Where's the honorarium? You know, you don't, they put out RFPs and they want you to draw and do all this stuff, but they're not offering any money. I had to break this down to somebody recently that I just became a finalist for, I'm happy to say. But the point is, I said, what you're not understanding is that I'm a working artist. I work full-time as an artist. That's not just making artwork. I've got to do the PR. I've got to beat the bushes. I've got to do the administration. I've got to pay the bills. There's a whole lot of stuff I do. I wear a bunch of hats. If I've got to stop what I'm doing to make something for you and you're not paying me, that means I'm working for you for free, and the people that would pay me can't pay me because I'm not working on that stuff. So I've had to explain that explicitly to people. It's like, it's not politically correct to ask an artist to work for free. Well, can't you just do a couple of illustrations? No.
That's right.
Number two is, oftentimes these projects, programs are run by white people. I'm just gonna be plain. A lot of white people don't get it. They don't. They think they do, but they don't, because they're not Black. They have an intellectual understanding of what a public artwork is going to be or do, or whatever the case may be. But what they're not understanding is that they're on the other side of the veil. When you put an artwork of a Black person in a public place, I just said this yesterday to Milwaukee. I'm trying to install a sculpture that was finished 2 years ago in Milwaukee. And I said to the woman who's running the organization, because I've been noisy with her, I'm just gonna say, you know, just trying to straighten these people out. Not unkind, but noisy, as in, look, this is how it's supposed to be. And I said to her yesterday, I know that we've had our differences, and I know that you may find me challenging, but understand I'm doing this for us. We're Black first. Before we are attorneys, doctors, lawyers, and we're Black first. I was brought up in the 70s. We were taught at Morgan State University, you cannot be mediocre. Mediocrity is not acceptable because you're Black. You have to prove yourself. You got to go above and beyond. I'm so sincere about that. And I said to her, I'm not doing anything slipshod ever. It's not about my reputation. It's about, I represent Black people. I'm responsible. You have to be responsible too. And she's like, okay. And, and I said to her, despite the difficulty that we're having getting this work done, I'm like, this is one of the first sculptures of an African-American man in the city of Milwaukee. That's a big deal. Come on. The point of it is that you try to explain to people, you try to explain to people the importance of what we're doing. And unless they're us, they don't get it.
Right. Because
we know our history, even those of us that aren't really steeped in history. There's so many stories. Oh my God. The other day, somebody sent me an article about 800 children that were burned in an orphanage in New York City. I'm like, what? The stories just keep coming. So many injustices. It's like, you owe us. You owe us. And at this point, the only thing that looks viable to me is art in public places. Like I said, I'm not expecting no checks in the mail.
Mm. Thank you.
Amen.
Very powerful. Very powerful. First, before we get to the Q&A, I want to say thank you so much for number one, for being here. That's number two. Number one, thank you for heeding that call to do your work. I mean, it's like, sometimes people don't understand that, they say that we have a choice, but sometimes we don't have a choice. You got to do what you're here to do. So thank you so much for getting our story out there in the way that you do.
Let me tell you something. I don't care what your religion is.
That's right.
There is a God. There's somebody alive. There's somebody out there. They're in your head every day. You hear them just, you do. I say this to little kids. They're like, oh, I'm like, let's talk about the voices. They right. Freak out. Like, oh, we're going to, let's name them. Okay. Yeah. And after we name the loud voices, it's like, by the way, you ever notice that soft voice is kind of in the back of the room? It talks to you like every day. You hear it.
Every day.
It says things like, don't park there, go around the corner.
Every day.
If you don't listen, I swear to God, if you don't listen, later if I woulda, coulda, shoulda. Okay? And at some point, I don't, sometimes sooner than later, or the vice versa, at some point you realize that voice is for you. It's only for you.
Only for you.
And you realize that if you can just trust and not let your fear get in the way and do what it says.
Come on.
The most amazing things happen. You be sitting there trying to figure out how you're going to find a way, and the voice says something absurd. And you're like, what? I'm supposed to, okay, fine. Let me just go ahead and try. And then stuff just kind of opens up and you're like, whoa, you see that? It freaks me out. I have so many stories. I mean, I could go in. The point of it is that forget your religion. Forget what you've been taught. Is what you know. Somebody out there, they're alive. I don't know if it's one or a cajillion, but I'm here to tell you, they're in my head all the time. And some days I'm like, look, I heard that. That was not funny. Sometimes it's just like, and whoever it is, they have a sense of humor. I mean, the point of it is that I don't believe that I'm random. I don't believe that this whole experience is random. I don't believe that. I believe that the whole thing is by design. God is an artist. The whole thing, everything is by design.
Including the timing,
synchronicity.
Everything.
Oh my goodness. When you discover the concept of synchronicity and, I'm just going to say coincidence, there's no coincidence.
Right.
It's designed. And of course, if you can just relax and get out of your own way and not block yourself, it's amazing the kinds of things that you can experience. I hear people say things all the time, and I admonish people. It's like, listen to yourself. You're blocking. If I weren't too old, if I weren't too poor, if I could do, it's like, no. Put that aside and see how you can do it anyway.
Right. Absolutely. Woo-wee. Man, we can keep talking about this, but let's get to the Q&A, which is good stuff. So just real fast, you want to keep your questions and your comments less, keep it down to a minute or less, because we're going to have people who are going to want to ask questions. And we also want to give Vinnie time to respond to that. To raise your hand, you want to go down to the bottom of your screen with your cursor, hit reactions, and then click on the raise hand button. If you don't have a reactions tab on the bottom of your screen, go to the participants, click on that, find your name, go to the three dots on the right-hand side, and you should be able to find it, the raise hand option there. All righty. Whoa, people have jumped in here. All right, so, and I've been keeping track here. So Cody, excuse me, has had her hand up for a while. And then we're going to go to Myrna and then PJ. No, I'm saying Myrna, then Dr. Felicia Williams-Cozy, and then PJ, and then Sheila. Cody.
I just wanted to say thank you so much. I love your clarity. I love your depth. I love your honesty. I wish that there were a lot more people here. And I think that people shy away when they hear art. I know I did. My sister was an art history major and I just poo-pooed it. And I think the white male thing that you talked about is totally true also. And it was such vibrancy. I loved it. And the heart in it. And all the comments in the chat are like that too. Oh, I know Black Angels, by the way. So there are Black Angels.
In public art? In public art?
No, I'm talking about reality.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, that's probably enough for me, but thank you so much. And I just wish some of the regulars could have been here. The history lesson, it was fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cody. And then now we go to Myrna Beckford. Myrna, take yourself off mute.
Yeah, I just took myself off mute. Anyways, it's just like, I raised my hand and then it's like, oh, what am I going to say? Because, Vinnie, I just want to say that, like, you just provided so much today. And thank you. It's almost like, oh, gosh, it's like, how did I end up here, right? Like, it's been such a gift. One of the things, my question to you is, and I don't come from an art family at all, right? Like, art was something that you did on the side, a little class here or there. Growing up, and I go to plays and I've seen all of August Wilson, and I could say that, but I'm not really like an art. So when I saw the invite today and it said art and reparations, I'm like, what does this have to do with that? So it's like, first of all, the first thing I want to ask, there's two questions I want to ask, is that is there any way that we can get this recording? Because I would love to watch it again, because this is something like what you presented today is something that I would love to study a little more. And then the other thing that you said was, and with all due respect, that white people, and a lot of them have great intentions, but they don't get it because they're not Black. Now, I happen to be Black, but born in the Caribbean. And sometimes people put me in the category of, you don't understand the Black plight, Black American plight, even though I have been here more longer than I was in my country. I mean, I've been here for 35 years. So what do you have to say about that? And how can I,
I'm gonna tell you, but you can stop talking. I'm gonna tell you straight up. First of all, regarding the art thing, anybody can be an artist. You don't necessarily have to start off at the very beginning like I did. You could be one of those people who discover your gift late. I'm gonna tell you, like I tell the 5th graders, figure out what you love. Figure out what you love. I mean, if you hit the lotto and money wasn't an issue and you didn't have to sit there and bust your butt for little green pieces of paper and time was all yours, what would you spend your time doing? Because anything can be elevated as an art. You could be a baker making cupcakes and it could be an art. I mean, you could be someone who plays the drums. You could be whatever you want to be. The common thread among artists that make art, not just working artists, but artists in general, is that they love what they do. When they're doing what they're doing, they're in love.
Right.
Okay, so it could be anything. It doesn't matter. I mean, you see artists do the wildest things like, oh my God, what are they doing? But they're so immersed in it because they have a passion for that. The question is, do you have a passion for anything? And if you don't, then you maybe need to start exposing yourself to stuff so you can find something to be in love with, okay? So that's part one. Part two is that they're recording this, so I imagine that you will be able to share it.
Yes.
And so that's easy. And of course, I do artist talks all the time. You know, I'm sure they'll send me your email or whatever, and you know, or you can just follow me on Facebook. My Facebook page is open. You could just hit the follow and first see or whatever and figure out what the heck I'm doing. But the point of it is that it's just really important to have something that matters to you. I think everybody should have something of their own that matters to them. And for me, making art got me through my childhood. I mean, I didn't want to go to summer camp. I didn't like other kids. I didn't want to go outside and play. I didn't want to do anything. I'm just, if you could just leave me alone in my room, I'll be good. You won't hear from me. And that's how I spent the better part of my childhood, between studying to get my grades and drawing. And I was perfectly happy. I don't want to do anything else. No, I don't want to go ride my bike. No, I don't want to, no, tell them I'm not home. You know, I didn't want to be bothered. You know, all I wanted, this was my passion.
Yeah.
And then one day it occurred to me, if I can draw, that I can paint. I went and bought some stuff. 16 hours later, I had a painting like I had been painting all along. You know, I was an overachiever in school. At some point, you know, I decided to do a book on my family. Next thing I know, here comes an opportunity to write a book about the city of Yonkers, African Americans. And then here comes the paper want me to write. And all kinds of things just started to happen because I love doing the stuff I do. And people kind of pick up on it. By the way, passion is contagious. If you're passionate and you're around other people, they feel you.
Absolutely.
It's so...
Whew. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so very, very much, Myrna. My beautiful friend, Dr. Felicia Williams-Cozy. Good to see you here today.
It's good to be here. And Vinnie, I think you just knocked everything that I had planned to say out of my head by what you just finished saying. I am so tremendously inspired by your passion and your vision and your perseverance that so represents who we are as a people. And the question I was going to ask was more about how do we support artists? But as you just got finished talking, I realized my daughter has been writing since she was 8 years old.
Yeah.
And it's what she loves and what she's passionate about. And I encourage her, but you just sparked me for other ways that I can.
Mentor. Find her a mentor. Hi, I didn't
Yes.
mention that. I had mentors since 8th grade, okay? I rolled up at Woodlands High School when 8th grade was in high school. So you had grades 8 through 12. That first week I was there, the English chair came to me and said, I'm gonna be your mentor. Let me tell you what I want you to do. I want you to take every English class we offer. I want you to take an extra English class along with I'm putting you in the Regents track. In New York State, we have something called Regents, which is like advanced placement. So I took a regular English class, I took expository writing, critical writing, creative writing. Mind you, I write kind of like I talk. There's a certain kind of intensity. When I began competing for public art, what I realized is that I have to compel people on paper when I'm not in the room. That means I got to find the right collection of words to make people feel me through the ether. And at this point, I got it down pretty much to a science. I'm winning a lot. But the point of it is that if this is something that your daughter loves to do, then as a mother, you start looking for writing opportunities. Like, for instance, plays. Plays are written. Please take it to see Lackawanna Blues, okay? Point of it is plays. Of course, there's reading books. Good writers read a lot. You know, and again, it could be questions, what is she interested? Like, for instance, I spent the early 2000s reading other artists' biographies. I read Richard Wright, I read Charles White, I read all the big people. I read their biographies because I was curious about not their artwork, because I already knew about that. I was curious about their lives, because there's a difference between your work and your life. At some point in artists, the two kind of get intertwined, but there still is a difference. It's one thing for you to look at my artwork. It's another thing for me to tell you all the backstories that go with why I made it, why it looks like that, and why I chose to do what I did. So again, you think about, for instance, I love movies. Oh man, you should hear me critique movies, you know. Lovecraft, I'm like, people don't get it, but that's pretty good writing. Yeah, they could have been a little bit more clear here and there, but again, you look for things that include writing. All movies have screenwriters. People write, you know, so you
That's her dream.
Things that, you know, that help her to become discerning as a writer. That's how you support her.
Yeah. The other thing I realized as you're talking is that teaching is also an art.
Yes,
and that there's an opportunity in mentoring and in teaching that
I'm going to tell you one last thing that's really important. This is the most important thing. There is nothing more valuable than to have one, if not both of your parents believe in you. My father believed in me the whole time. My mother wasn't quite as enthusiastic. My father believed in me from the whole time. This man used to bring me giant pads of paper. I remember when I was 4, he would come home with these giant pads of paper. That's all I ever, and that's what he got, paper and pencil. That's what I got. And then one day, my mother, who's also an artist, mind you, I didn't know these people were artists because everybody in my family's creative. One day, I remember my mother gave me a good putty eraser. These are the little things that you do that make it helpful for your kids to grow, because I was going nuts with the number 2 pink eraser messing up my work. You know, again, how do I know that there's an eraser better than that? You know, you have to expose your children. And then you find out what they love, and then you try to figure out how to support them. I put my daughter in FIT fashion summer program for high school students. It transformed her life in 3 weeks. I swear to God. She came out of that ready to get straight A's for the rest of the duration in high school. My daughter went to Parsons in the end. But the point of it is that I realized if I threw her in the pool early, that would help her to understand what her life could be. And you just keep trying to find experiences to enrich them. This is what we mean by enrichment. You find experiences because kids are brand new. If you can recall being 12, 15, 17, 20, they're brand new. They don't know what's possible. You have to show it to them.
So Vinnie, I just want to interrupt because I know Felicia has to go, but her husband Tyrone just shared that their daughter Karina is a fabulous writer, and Felicia, I know that didn't exactly answer the question you were asking. Did you want to restate the question, or?
It's okay. Unfortunately, I have another meeting I have to go to immediately, but I did that, and my father believed in me, and I believe in my daughter, and she now writes in 3 languages. She writes in 4: English, Japanese, Spanish, and she's learning Ukrainian. So I do want to say encourage your children, but also encourage the adults in your life.
Yes.
Because there are many of us who are sitting still with our gift inside of us.
That's right.
And what we need is somebody who believes and who supports and who encourages, like you have done today, Vinnie. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Felicia.
Thank you, Felicia. Good seeing you.
And congratulations on Karina. That's amazing.
Really is.
And we go to PJ, and then Sheila, then Maurice.
Thank you, Vinnie. I'm PJ Jones, and what I'm wanting to ask, well, first, my wife put in the chat that now we've got to go to Yonkers. I mean, we're going to go see all. I mean, it's amazing. What I wanted to ask was, We went to Washington, D.C. in 2016 when the museum opened, the Smithsonian African American Museum opened. But as we were walking, we saw a Civil War statue, and the sculptor was Vinnie Hoxie. Do you know? I just there's a plaque, and I took a picture of it, and that's what I'm reading. And it was, was a young African American sculptor who did the first statue of the Civil War hero, who was a white man. And the statue was dedicated in April 25th of 1881. Well, so I wouldn't know. But I just thought it was kind of remarkable that her name was Vinnie and your
That is
name.
pretty remarkable. Well, see, again, the challenge is that I didn't go to art school, so I didn't study art history. And frankly, I was never really interested in what other sculptors were doing. I mean, even now, I don't really follow anybody. And so of course, over the course of the years, I've met people and things like that. But honestly, if you're talking about art history, I don't know. I don't even try to fake it.
I don't know. It was just, I thought it said, well, actually,
That
I
is
was thinking
cool,
it was like
though.
1981, but it was 1881. And she did this, and there's a plaque on this first Civil War hero.
Yes.
So I just thought it was kind of interesting. And I just wanted amazing work, just amazing. So thank you. Thank you. And thank you for just being you.
Thank you.
Thank you, PJ. Sheila Smith.
Hello. Thank you, Sister Love. I usually don't say anything. I usually talk and chatter. I send my question to trying to act all shy and stuff, but I had to just say thank you, Sister Love. You have deeply inspired me. I am a poet, and I kind of sit on my poetry a lot of times, and people say, oh, you should publish, oh, you should do this. And then I'll read out in public, then I'll, hide it under the bushel again, and then I'll bring it out. So thanks for inspiring me. And I have to tell you that your victory angels, they lifted up off the screen and encircled me. So I don't know if I'm supposed to write about them, but they are with me. They just literally came and surrounded me. So the victory angels are with me. And I guess they'll tell me what to do. Because like you say, you get inspired in that way.
I don't think we have the time, but I have to tell you about Blue. Blue is my guardian angel. And many years ago, Deepak Chopra was on the radio with Michael Baisden, and Michael Baisden asked, what is God? And Deepak Chopra said, God is not a spirit. Think of God as a mind, and we are part of that mind. So anything that God knows, we can know. And so then he said, well, what are angels? He said, well, those are spirits. And they work for God because God delegates. There were different kinds. They have jobs. He said, well, what are guardian angels? He says, well, of course, those are the angels that come to the physical plane known as the Earth School to guard and to guide the other spirits who come to the physical plane. Everybody's assigned one, and they basically stay with you the whole trip until you die, and then they hand you over to the victories. He says, but I have to tell you something. He says, angels are like people. They have personalities, and a lot of them are pissed. I said, oh God, this is the part for me. So I turn it up. And he says, a lot of times people ignore them and acknowledge that they're the ones who do the grunge work. Like, when something good happens, you say, thank God, thank Jesus, Jehoshaphat, whomever, whatever. He said, but nobody ever thanks the angels. He says, if you are smart and you're guilty of this, he said, by all means, apologize to them, all together, but zoom in on your guardian angel and try to have a relationship. He says, you can either name them or ask them their name. So fast forward, I decided to name my guardian angel Blue because I had wanted to name my daughter Blue, and my father wouldn't let me. So my guardian angel's name is Blue. And I said to my angel when I named him, I said, if that's not your name, can you please send me a sign? So lo and behold, we're in the movie, and there's this scene in the movie. Oh my God, I'm having a mental block. It's the movie where Tom Cruise is the assassin and Jamie Foxx is the cab driver who's driving them around. I'll think of it.
Collateral damage.
Thank you.
Collateral. Yeah.
And so at the end of the movie, you know, Jamie Foxx is trying to figure out where Jada Pinkett Smith is because she's the last person on the hit list. And the camera zooms in all the way close to Jamie Foxx's face. And I'm sitting there marveling at his skin, like, look at that good skin, man. You can't even see no pores. I don't even think he has makeup on. I was just kind of freaking on his skin first. And as the camera pulled out, this is one of those old fashioned, you know, big theaters with the big screen. Behind his ear, you could see like the lights of the city. And there was a giant neon sign. Capitals B-L-U-E, and it started flashing, screaming in the theater. I'm like, oh, that's
You got a sign. A sign.
no, it's flashing. Look, it's flashing. B-L-U-E caps in the color blue neon sign 60. If I don't see that, I just, seriously, he's like, oh God, you're so crazy. So fast forward 10 years later, it's on cable. They cut that scene. I had to call them. Wow. They weren't dating anymore. I had to call them up, even make sure that it was still like real. I was like, hey, babe, how are you? He's like, well, hello, babe. How are you? I'm like, good. Remember that movie? Because he was a movie nut. He said, yeah. I said, they cut that scene out with the guardian angel thing. Remember that? He said, well, maybe that was just for you. So I'm going to say, if you haven't been talking to your guardian, when you get off the Zoom, say hello.
For sure. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Wow. Talk about a sign on a sign in a sign.
Okay. No kidding. True story.
All righty. Just a quick reminder, we have about 15 minutes left here. So I want to get through this because there are some other things you want to talk about after the Q&A. So let's go with, we have Maurice. Joseph got off, it looks like. You have Maurice, and then Joe, and then Tyrone.
I want to just thank Lane and Eugene for creating a space for you, Vinnie. I loved what you had to say. And you know what, I recognize, I've been working on a project all summer, looking at how we can transform some of the ways that people look at life, because one of the things I've noticed as we go through this process of looking at how to re-engage some people who have disconnected from their creativity and they only see money, you know, as the way to make it in life. What success means to them is money. But they ignore all of the damage that is being caused by the way money is made by a large number of people. And so you're talking about reparations. And so in the work that I've done, I've noticed that the humanitarians are artists and they get it. They understand that we can't continue to do the kind of things that we do to make money, you know. And success is connecting to that spirit within us, you know. And I think what happens for some people is that layer that is money blocks the creative energy that is coming to all of us. So what can we do to help people make that transition from the idea that this is the only way to live to humanity is the most important thing that we can focus on in this human experience, being a spiritual being?
I'm going to say a couple of things. Number one, the most important thing that anybody should do, whether they're an artist or not, is to study fear management. There are a couple of books I recommend very highly. The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Julia Cameron is the ex-wife to Martin Scorsese. She's considered the leading authority on creativity in the United States. She's bad. The Artist's Way. It's a 12-step program for artists, and it's all about fear management, digging yourself, understanding who you are, why you are, you know, how you block yourself, Usually you don't even know that you're blocking yourself. Sometimes I listen to people talk and I'm like, oh God, they're badly blocked because they speak negatively about themselves and don't even realize they're speaking against themselves. So I think the first thing is to really get a grip on yourself and understand why you feel the way you feel. And then of course, it's like that acronym, fear is false expectations appearing real. You have to figure out whether it's something that's real and dangerous, or if it's something that's just in your mind. And that requires a lot of time and introspection. That's part one. Part two is that there's a saying, work like you don't need the money, dance like nobody's looking, that too has to do with your self-esteem. I mean, I went through a very long period where I was not making money. And I just kept telling myself to keep going, that this is not my destination. This is kind of where I am. I need a bridge. And those people that know me for a long time know I used to have something say, I need a bridge to the bridge, because sometimes bridges run out and then you got shark water and you need another bridge because land is way over there and you can't swim that far, and so, when you look at other people's stories of struggle, like for instance, I love Morgan Freeman, who didn't become famous until he was 56. So for the first 56 years, he was just trying to be what he knew he could be. And then in year 56, stuff started to pop. And now, of course, everybody knows who he is. Again, it has to do with what you believe about yourself. It has to do with your belief in, do you believe in God? Do you, not what they taught you, what do you believe? See, there's what they taught you, and then there's what you believe.
Right.
And so, I think that the real question is, who am I? Where am I? What am I doing here? What am I supposed to be doing? What can I do? What is there to do? You have to keep asking a lot of questions. In that talk show with Deepak Chopra and Michael Baisden, Deepak Chopra said, if you want to have a relationship with God, ask questions. When you pray, ask questions. Don't tell God what you want. Ask God how to get it. Like who, what, where, when, why. Like, so who am I supposed to call? Where am I supposed to go? How am I supposed to do that? When am I supposed to do that? Just because God answers all questions. The challenge oftentimes is that you don't know the answer when you see it because your fears tell you no.
Yes.
And so the goal is, as they say, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times people are like, well, I can't do that, because it's like, stop saying I can't. How about saying I will? I will. And sometimes people say, well, if I do, no, not if, when I do such and such and such,
Yeah,
and
good
so
stuff.
it's how you speak, because as they say, God created the world with the word, and how you speak is how you create reality. When you set your intentions, you're setting it with words. You have to be careful what you say.
Yeah.
Again, all of this matters. I mean, a lot of it's little things, but it all matters. And you have to decide for yourself what you want to do with your time on this planet while you have the time.
Yeah.
You don't have to be rich and famous. Sometimes you're here just to do something small. My favorite little story is, there was this man who was born into a poor family, what they call trailer trash. They lived in a trailer, and his mother was an alcoholic, and his stepfather beat him, and he was dyslexic, and he grew up and dropped out of high school. And next thing you know, he's a drunk laying on the street, and people saying, oh, what a waste. One morning he wakes up in time to see this little black boy getting ready to cross the street, but the little boy is distracted. He doesn't see that there's a truck coming around the corner. So just as the boy went to step off the curb, the man reaches out and snatches the boy back from death, and the little boy grows up to be Martin Luther King. Who's random and who's on purpose? You can't judge people like that. You can't look at somebody and say, you're not on purpose because they don't look like it to you.
Yeah.
And even you, when you look at yourself, you can't judge yourself like that, and nobody judges you harder than you do.
That's true. Cool. Absolutely. I have clients who go, but but what if it doesn't work? I go, well, what if it does?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This is my last thing, answering his question. The
Yeah.
sequel, the movie, the 2006 version on Netflix,
Right.
is about the law of attraction. On this plane, we have all these laws that we take for granted. Everybody knows about gravity, but there's something called the law of attraction. Ask, believe, receive is the secret. You know, easy to ask for something, easy to receive it. It's that middle part.
Right.
Believe me. How do you get yourself to believe something when you don't? You know how? You act as if it's real.
Yep.
Vinny, have you seen a movie called Collateral Beauty by with Will Smith in it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
Yes.
And that is what keeps me focused on the possibilities,
Yes.
not the problems.
Yes.
You know?
All right, folks, we have just a couple of more minutes. I have Joe, and then Tyrone will close us out with the Q&A. Joe?
Thank you, Eugene. First of all, thank you so much, Vinnie, for joining us. Your vibrancy, your whole self that you bring to this conversation is remarkable. And it really triggered something for me. This group frequently talks about different speakers come in and we learn about something new when it comes to anti-racism and a lot of other things in that category. And a common thing that happens is we ask ourselves, well, now that we've been through another 90 minutes, well, what can we do? How can we act? And for people that look like me, we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot to learn if we're capable of doing it. Today, I had never really thought about, instead of reading another book, going to another workshop, joining another online forum, going to a place where artwork exists from artists like yourself is just another way for us to keep doing this work and finding creative ways not to give up, not to get discouraged, because it's discomforting learning, that your whole history background was really a put-up job beyond belief. And for some of us, we only have a couple of decades left. The clock is running down for some of us. So thanks again for giving us another way to think about exploring the work and maybe learning more about experiences from people that don't look like us and trying to make that bridge. Because we're not going to give up, Vinnie. We're not just going to check out because someone tells us you can't possibly understand. We're trying, and hopefully some of us are transformed before the time we leave.
I think you'll find that the art world is probably going to be one of the most amazing worlds that you'll ever meet, because again, artists are not as judgmental as people who are not artists. Because we live in a world of total possibility. We don't get stuck on the same kind of things that other people do. Sometimes we do, but you're going to find that, it's a very liberal and very open and very warm and engaging environment. I mean, you could go to an art opening and you'll be astounded by the number of people you talk to, because that's what the opening is for people to engage one another about the artwork that's being presented. I didn't know that until I was 25. I was in therapy. My therapist told me, you need to find people from your planet of your kind, and they're not going to necessarily look like you. And that was when I learned about art openings. She's like, oh, they create these events just so you could talk to each other, people like you. So, this is the beauty of getting into the art world, is that you don't have to be afraid.
Great. Ooh, good stuff. We close out with my brother Tyrone Cozy.
What's up, Miss Vinnie?
Hi.
You something else, girl. You something else. I'm telling you, you're throwing it down. You're making it true. I appreciate all that crackling New York energy, But I do want to share this little piece because you just hit me when I heard this. So 2 quick things I wanted to read. One is a quote from something called Listen to Your Heart. Many of you know this magazine from Science of Mind. And it starts off by, musicians must make music. Artists must paint. Writers must write if they are to be ultimately at peace within themselves. And the last part to that I wanted to read is another paragraph. Our highest calling is to grow into who we are meant to be. We are each put here for a reason. We are meant to do work that is unique to us. So we need to show up and do what we are called to do. I'm a vocalist. I'm a vocal artist. And so I'm just totally vibing on what you said. And I just want to end it by letting you know there's a bad sister out here in the East Bay. We live in the Oakland, San Francisco area named Dana King. And if you haven't heard of Dana King, you would be a kindred soul with her. She was on KPIX TV as an anchor for a number of years, and she broke out of that and went into her artwork. In fact, Maurice Graham was on the call. She did a piece that's literally across the street from his home in downtown Oakland. And in San Francisco, she just did a piece that many of us participated in. If you go to the chat, you'll see Felicia specifically put a link in there so you could check it out when you go back. But she created where Francis Scott Key's sculpture was, which was yanked out of Golden Gate Park by protesters. She got commissioned to do a piece with 350 rubber statues in concentric circles to represent the 350 slaves who came here in 1619. It's an amazing piece that's in the Golden Gate Park. So next time you come to San Francisco.
I have a cousin, Angela Allen Sims. Look for her. She's an artist in Oakland, in that area, Antioch, California, which I think is a suburb of Oakland.
It is.
I'm scheduled to come see her sooner or later. I'll have to ask her to take me there.
Take you to the Golden Gate Park so you can see that experience. Or if you have a moment, look up Dana King. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you brought today. You've cut through some barriers that we've been talking stuff on for almost 2 years. And the way you put it just cut through the air with such love, determination, passion, determination, focus. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tyrone. Vinnie, real fast, what is the name of that play?
Lackawanna Blues is at the Samuel, I think it's J. Friedman Theater. It's the Manhattan Theater Club. It's
Okay.
on 47th Street, 267
Okay.
47th Street. Previews are happening between now and the end of the month, which means the tickets are cheap. And it is worthwhile. Ruben Santiago Hudson is fire.
Thank you.
Fire. I mean, laughing, crying. It's a one-man play. And
great.
He just does it.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And thank you for everybody who asked your questions. Thank you for keeping them under a minute and all of that good stuff. I want to turn this over now back to my beautiful co-host, Lane.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Vinnie Bagwell, for gracing our stage, our virtual stage. Thank you for bringing it and for inspiring us all. I wanted to say that while we're talking about following your inspiration and being present to how we don't have to make money the traditional way anymore and all that, I just because I am who I am, just want to say, as wonderful as that is, what a privileged conversation that is to be able to have. That is a conversation of privilege. And that we want to all notice how privileged we are in this broadcast, in this moment, to be able to say, yeah, I don't necessarily have to worry about how I don't have to, go get the green stuff. I can sit and create. And that knowing that self-creation absolutely is transformative for us and for everyone and for the world. So for us to take that privilege and create absolutely who we are to be so we can do the work we are to do, because that's what we're here for. Just thank you, everybody, for bringing that energy into this group. And thank you, Vinnie, for offering that opportunity to see the difference that you are making in the world with that conversation. So that is a beautiful thing. If you haven't, please visit vinnieworld.com. And Vinnie, also, there's a Mr. Gary Lee who in the chat said that he'd like to speak with you about the possibility of doing a sculpture in his town. I did share your email. I hope that's okay. I don't know,
Yes.
And he said he can envision it. So Gary, go ahead and reach out to Vinnie offline. Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to encourage you again that the movie, The Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain, is premiering in theaters and video on demand. I'm going to have Eugene go ahead and share a screen that will show you how you can get that movie. This is national news now. You might have seen Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. being interviewed on the national news networks, telling the story of the wrongful police killing of his father and the reopening of the case by the current local DA here. We are urging folks to either go to the live screening or order it on demand if possible. You can see there on the left, there are some theaters where it is, and on the right, how you can get it video on demand. We are planning a screening event at a future date. We will also be coordinating a conversation with Mr. Chamberlain to discuss getting rid of qualified immunity for police officers in our next Race Talk series, in our next 8-week series. And so please support that effort, if you will. Next week, our guest will be educator and racial justice activist, Ms. Marjorie Freeman. Ms. Freeman is a trainer with the People's Institute and on the board of the Centers for the Study of White American Culture. Ms. Freeman is going to speak with us on the topic of how to raise anti-racist children. So please be with us for that. And if you want to find more information about the movie Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain, the link is there in the chat, killingofkcfilm.com. Eugene, what do you want to tell us about our website?
Man, we have been, we want people to know. We've been working on this for a while. We are happy to announce that our website is up. It is racetalkrevolution.com. Race Talk Revolution is one word, racetalkrevolution.com. Racetalkrevolution.com. So please don't, oh, did I say racetalkrevolution.com? Yes. And also, please don't forget to like our Facebook page and please subscribe to our YouTube page as well. And maybe share a couple of the videos with some friends. Like I like to say, you know, be a friend, tell a friend. Start a conversation with your friends, your family, your faith group, and your community association. If we really want to see a change, it's going to take all of us working together. And we are here to support you. Remember that we are here to support you. And please let us know what you are doing to dismantle systemic racism in your own little neck of the world. You never know who might be inspired by hearing your story. Thank you so very much for being here.
Ms. Bagwell, we've got 2 minutes. I'm going to give you the last word. What do you want us to go home with?
Oh, I'm just so delighted to find you and you find me. And I guess I'll be working with you again in the future because these are conversations that I will continue to have. Yeah. It's nice to be well educated, you know, on the subject. It's not just about my opinion.
Right.
You know, it's important to, again, try to keep illuminating the facts, to try to keep bringing the truth to the light. And so I just want to say thank you. And I look forward to knowing you guys and learning things from you.
Thank you again for being here. It's absolutely our pleasure to be here. Thank you, this tremendous group of warriors, committed folks to speaking truth and making it count. Thank you from Culture Coffee 2. Thank you for tuning with us today. Please stay
Washington,
in contact.
D.C.'s in the house.
We will do everything to keep everybody connected. And we'll see you next week. Have a great week, everybody. Love you.
All right, folks. Bye now.